What's going on, freaks and geeks, gals and ghouls? It is I, Richard Zom, for Corpses for Conversation. I'm here at the Kern County Fair talking to this gentleman right here. I'm going to have him introduce himself right now. He takes care of everything con-related for our nerd needs. So, sir, if you will, please introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Steve Wyatt with Bakersfield Comic Con and Bake Anime and MouseCon.
Oh, nice. He does the trifecta, all three: Disney, anime, and, of course, the Comic Con.
Right.
That must be a lot of fun. You must have tons of collectibles everywhere.
Yeah, I started collecting in about 72. Wow. I started working for a guy at a comic shop, and it was a flea market stall, not much bigger than our booth here, in 74. And I've been doing it ever since.
Nice. So what initially made you come up with the idea of helming this project?
Well, in 1979, I had a booth at Bakersfield at a table. We didn't have booths back then at BakeCon in San Francisco, which was the big Comic Con.
Okay.
The morning of the show, so it was the Saturday. My mom got called into work.
Okay.
So I couldn't go. So I got upset because I couldn't go. I was in 9th grade, so I couldn't drive myself.
I know that.
I mean, they get mad, you know, but I was upset I couldn't go because I paid $35 for my table.
Back then, too.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I would have had a small heart attack.
Right. And she was very apologetic. It was nobody's fault. I wasn't mad at her or anything. So a couple months later, I knew all the local comic artists like Frank Sirocco and Brent Anderson and Al Gordon and, you know, the guys that were the Bay Area comic scene.
Bay Area
Steve
guys.
Leialoha.
Wow.
So I went ahead and put on my own show on my side of the bay. See, I was on the east side of the bay in Hayward, called it SuperCon.
I vaguely remember hearing, I think my brother had mentioned that. That's his era.
It ran for years.
Okay.
So I put on my own show. And we even had a celebrity guest, which was unheard of then.
Ooh.
We had Arthur Lake, and you're going, who? He was Dagwood in the Blondie and Dagwood movies.
Oh, okay.
In the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
My dad's mentioned, I even believe my grandpa's mentioned that to me.
Yeah, but my mom knew him, and he lived in San Leandro. So he came and signed free autographs.
Oh, that's fantastic.
You know,
you gotta go with the source.
Yeah. So I put it on with my buddy Brian Copeland, who's actually a newscaster up in the Bay Area for years. He's a comedian.
Oh, sweet.
So, but yeah, we put on the first one in 79 and just ran it for years.
79, that was like on the cusp of everything coming up, the newer age of comic books, tail end or around the era of Star Wars. Like, you had a lot of this fresh, inspiring material.
Yeah, we put on a show in San Jose in 79 called Fantasy Symposium. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't run that one, but I ran the dealer's room for that one. And we had Gary Kurtz, John Murin, all the guys from Star Wars, because, you know, Lucas Ranch is right there. They came down with a bunch of props. Then I talked to Forrest Ackerman.
Okay.
And because we were having them, and I called him up as one of our guests. And he brought up the last Martian Death Machine from War of the Worlds, because he owns the only one left.
That's real cool. That's a real good movie. Like I appreciated the black and white version, and then the later Technicolor version.
And I even liked the Tom Cruise one. So
yeah, that was actually pretty good. That was what a very young, I think Dakota Fanning. Yeah, that was a really good one. Yeah, see all this old school fight. I mean, I'm jealous because, like I said, my brother and some of the, I don't want to say old timers in a disrespectful way, but you guys had that.
I'm an old timer.
But I mean, you guys had that when it was like, it was a fresh perspective, it was a fresh concept. It was not all these, because nowadays, for you fans know, everything's getting rehashed. A reboot of a reboot of a reboot of a reboot.
Right.
And I feel bad because right before I came to do the sit-down interview with Steve, we talked about the writer's strike that just went down with the actors. And I've always been a proponent where I've always said that I wish old Hollywood would kind of get out of dipping the honey well over and over and over and throw some of that money that's a tax write-off for them to these up-and-coming writers with original concept ideas to see what will actually hit.
Oh, yeah.
Something could, like, become grand from that rather than going, well, we'll go with what we know makes money. But it's like, even the stuff that makes money, you're losing money on. Like, being comic book fans. I wanted to see the Batwoman or Batgirl movie, and then that got completely scrapped. And they spent so much money on it.
DC just, I don't know why they went the direction they did. I mean, they just kind of went, okay, we're just going to scrap everything and start new. Why? You know?
Yeah.
Of course, when they do Batman again, they're probably going to start his origin again. Just like Spider-Man. They keep rebooting his origin.
Oh, that's good. That gets painful.
I know.
I had so much hope for The Flash. They hyped that up, and then, of course, the unfortunate things that were going on with Ezra Miller. And when I saw the movie, there was parts where I was like, wow, this is really good. Then there was other parts where I was like, well, you didn't really need that in there. I mean, of course, Michael Keaton's Batman stole the show completely.
Right.
That was all Keaton.
I don't know why they didn't get Grant to do the Flash.
Yes.
He was established, and people liked him.
Exactly.
It's like, why not transfer it over?
Correct. They just did that with Blue Beetle, too. Blue Beetle looked amazing on the trailers and stuff I saw, and I was really looking forward to it. I've seen a little bit of the movie. I haven't been able to sit down and
I haven't been able to watch it either.
But I'm really bummed out that, and some people will say it, and I've had people online talk about it. With him being a primary Latino actor, they're saying, if you saw how the marketing happened, he didn't really get a push compared to other mainstream movies, even though it was an not original concept, but it was a fresher perspective.
Right. A new character,
They really didn't push the envelope with him to really market it. I think if they marketed a little bit better, it would have been more predominant in the theaters, and
I didn't see anything.
Yeah,
I never saw a commercial on TV.
Couple minutes at most. So with you doing the cons over the years, any notable mention of people that you met that like blew your mind, that willing to come on board and be part of the con, and you were just like, oh my God, wow, really? Like, thank you so much.
I've met everybody. I used to go to...
Ooh, easy there. The heat's coming off this guy.
Stanley's office. I've been,
You met Stan the Man?
Many times.
Oh my
many
God.
times.
I got to meet him one time in passing when it was... when he took over the mantle of Kamikaze and then became Stan Lee's Kamikaze.
He never took over. You know why he took over? And I'll say it publicly. I don't give a shit. Oh, excuse my language.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
They owed him so much money.
Oh, yeah. I would
Kamikaze owed him money, which they couldn't pay him. So they gave him half the show.
Oh, okay.
That's why
so he got half
it
the
became
purse for it.
Stan
There you go. That's fantastic.
He didn't even know anything. I mean, people would come up, well, why don't you do this? He'd be like, I talked to him,
He's like, I'm
personally.
cashing my check
He doesn't know.
Day.
He didn't know anything about it. They would just tell him, show up at this time, do your speech, go over there and sign, go home.
Yeah,
that was it.
So the few times I went to Comic Cons, because I've done cosplay in the whole nine, right? I've done Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers. Bane is probably one of my favorite villains. Not the new one. No offense to Tom Hardy, even though I think he was a original concept for Mr. Freeze that got molded into Bane. I'm more of a fan of the old school comic Bane, the Batman animated series Bane, the luchador style Bane.
Right.
I've always loved that style of Bane. Even Jeep Swenson, the wrestler who conveyed in Joel Schumacher's Batman and Robin. Love that version of Bane too. I've always been a villains guy, from Juggernaut, everything. I've done the Kingpin, all kinds of cool stuff. Well, I was Bane at one of these kamikazes, and I was going to plan to go meet Stan, but his line was like 9 to 12 hours. And I'm like, even though you're one of the gods in comic book grading, I'm not standing in no line that long. I won't even stand in line that long for food. It's not going to happen. And I went to go take a break, get out of my mask and breathe a little bit. And I'm coming back in, and I see these two huge bodyguard guys, and I'm a big dude. And when you can get me to go, damn, like, you're big. And I come around the corner, and it's Stan Lee. And I'm in character because I'm back in there, and I walk by, and in my best voice, I'm like, Mr. Lee, good to see you. And he stops, he looks at me, he goes, you're on the wrong team, but nice to meet you, man. And he fist bumped me. Took everything in my body, fiber, atom, whatever, to not go, oh my God, I just got fist bumped by Stan Lee. One of the coolest points in my life, even though I didn't get a photo with him, I have that. Like, I mean, that's more, for me, that's more intimate, because I just got to meet him on the fly rather than him going, stand there, take your photo, move along.
Right. And honestly, he had no control over that stuff.
So now I'm going to ask you one, just because he's a personal favorite artist of mine, and I've gone ham over his stuff. Have you met Todd McFarland?
Yes.
Couple times. Killing me here, man. What he did to revolutionize Spider-Man was unreal. The art he did behind that.
His art's great. I never liked him. And I'll tell you why. I'll give you my McFarland story.
Oh, you're going to see a Panic Attack Live.
When Image Comics started, Todd's brother-in-law put on a show called ImageCon. And Jim was there, and Rob was there.
Oh, so you met Jim Lee as well.
I know Jim personally.
Oh, my God. Jim,
got his cell phone right there.
His X-Men work.
Yeah. Todd was there, and we got invited up to be vendors there. Mm-hmm. So, but I drove a U-Haul truck with like 5 guys' stuff, because it was up in Portland.
Okay.
And it was in like a closed down Sears. So, but it's right when they started. It was the first time all the original 5 guys were there. You know, Valentino was there, Silvestri was there. They were all there. So, but I'm outside. Todd's there. Todd's about, I don't know, about 20 feet from me, maybe 30 feet. And he's up against his red Corvette with his trophy blonde wife. And I'm unloading a truck. And I was about to jump down from the truck. Well, my shoe got caught on the edge of the top of the truck. And this is, a U-Haul.
Yeah.
And my shoe stayed, the sole of the shoe stayed. And I just almost, I arm planted it. If it wasn't for my arm, I would have face planted it on the ground. No, but I scratched it all up.
Oh, man.
And my buddies come running over. Everyone, you okay? And I've got blood on my arm and everything. He's standing just that far away, like this, just laughing.
Oh.
That tells you something about his character.
Okay, got you.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got you.
Any normal person with integrity would have run over, you okay?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, they always say people will laugh when they see someone take a fall and be in pain.
Yeah.
It's one of those weird. I've always been one. I don't do that just because I've eaten enough times where I'm like, doesn't feel good.
But not even you okay when I stood up or anything.
Exactly.
He just laughed.
Wow.
So
man, dagger in my heart.
And the next time I saw him, I said hi to him, and we, but he was signing for people. This was in Arizona.
Okay.
And he lives there. That's the only reason he would do that show.
All right.
It's like this is him on his phone. Yeah, nice to meet you.
Oh wow.
You know what I mean? He didn't care about the fans.
Not taking a couple seconds to do that. Wow.
He didn't give each fan those 2 seconds to look him in the eye and say hi. Yeah, it's sad.
It hurts
that you get that big.
It hurts because I mean he revolutionized action figures too. Like he made these.
Oh no, his action
statues.
What he did for action figures, changed the world of action figures straight out. But yeah, him as a person, he's just not that great with the fans. He's not that. A friend of mine saw him not too long ago, and he was really good with the fans. But they were paying him $50,000 for the 4 hours to be there.
Wow.
So
that's gnarly.
Yeah.
Okay, so relatively 2 more questions for you, and I'll be out of here. Thank you interviewing it as it is. What do you think? Because again, everyone knows my name is Richard Zombie. I'm a big zombie fan. I loved when Robert Kirkman came on the scene and did the whole Marvel vs. Zombie thing, and then he did the Walking Dead series. But I've always been the type of fan. I don't know if it's because I'm old school myself. But anything that gets overhyped and oversaturated, I'll lose complete interest in it. Because
absolutely.
When it's a small niche, I genuinely thoroughly love it.
When Marvel Zombies started, everyone was like, wow. But when they started 3, and then it was on all the books, and it was like, okay.
And then DC did their own version of like DC Metal, and they went down that avenue with it. So I still see it bouncing back and forth today. Is the movie market, whether it's comic books and stuff like that, is it too saturated with horror? Do they need to like separate a little bit to give it time to breathe?
They were more saturated with it.
Okay.
So now if you notice, there's less horror than there was 10 years ago.
Yes.
Because of that. People were just, okay, we're done.
Yeah. Because I see Blumhouse is putting out a lot of stuff.
Right. But when I was a kid, horror movies were like The Exorcist.
Yes.
And
I personally can't
there
watch
was an element of reality in them. The Exorcist could happen.
Yeah.
And so that's why it scared the crap out of you. Even The Shining and things like that. Those were, my daughter laughs at The Exorcist and stuff.
Oh, I can't.
Because she got so inundated with all of it. Freddy Krueger was
Robert?
her.
Yeah.
And I actually got her a chance. We had Robert as a guest.
Oh, fantastic.
And she was working the show with me. We were up in San Jose at Silicon Valley Comic Con.
Okay. I've heard of that one.
She was working the admission. And I went to Robert and I said, I want to bring my daughter over and actually talk to you, though.
Okay.
You're her, idol. And he's like, tell you what, come tomorrow morning where I'm doing my photo op, but bring her 10 minutes early, and I'll hang out with her. So he did, and he's no longer allowed to bring the metal glove because I guess he accidentally cut somebody once. So he has a fake one.
Oh, okay.
That
I understand
to
that.
take pictures with. But I took my daughter the next day, and he was there 10 minutes early. He remembered, and I introduced them, and I kind of just went over there.
Yeah.
And he brought the metal one out and took a picture with her. So the photo op, so she got a free photo op, which then he signed for her.
That's fantastic.
And talked to her about some upcoming projects. Talked to her 10 minutes. And if you think about it, 10 minutes is a long time.
Yeah, big time.
And she was in tears when we were walking out. So,
Oh, wow.
It was like,
You did your dadly duty, like, I'm good to go with that.
In this world, I've been able to do my dad duty a lot with my children because my kids grew up in this world. They're 33 and 39.
Oh, they got to do something that most kids don't get to do. They got to see like behind the scenes workings as you're setting
they've
stuff
met
up.
my son worked for Torpedo Comics for 12 years.
Wow.
And John Dalmayan, who owns Torpedo, the drummer for System of a Down, he's a close friend of mine.
Okay.
And my daughter works there now to this day.
That's fantastic.
And
I'm so jealous.
Him and Jim
so
Lee
many levels.
are best friends. I mean, godfather to each other's children.
Wow.
Best man at each other's wedding.
Mine's being blown here. Boom.
And so my son, working for John closely, because at the time he ran the warehouse, there was only 3 of them. There was John, Steve, and David working.
Okay.
David's my son. So he got to hang out with Jim Lee all the time. Lunches, dinners, all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, I know Jim personally too, but my son got to too. And then my daughter's kind of in that. So every time they do signings in the store and all that stuff, she gets to be the one helping the guests out.
Yeah.
And people like Frank Cho. I mean, Frank's my old partner on my shows, but people like that she gets to hang out with. And matter of fact, Frank's girlfriend worked at Torpedo at the time. That's how they met in Las Vegas.
See, I love talking to people involved in the comic book world, especially the fact you've run a con and all, because you just have all these incredible stories. And like, I'm sitting here, I'm enjoying my interview, but I'm like fanboying out on the inside because like I would love to sit down with Jim Lee, but I'd probably wear him out because I'm like, how did you just know that you were going to rock and roll with X-Men art? And like, because his line work is exquisite. For his hand control,
I'll tell you a story.
Mind-altering.
When he first started, a buddy of mine, Tom Yates.
Okay.
Do you know who Tom Yates is?
Yes, I know Tom.
Okay, Tom's a close friend of mine too.
Yeah, well, you've met everyone, so
I do. I know everybody. But Tom Yates and him did a show in Australia.
Okay.
So they shared a room because the promoter put them up together. Now, Jim, he's in his first year into this. Tom's doing Swamp Thing at the time.
Okay.
So he's in the season book. And they were talking, and Jim told him he was going to be the first guy to make $1 million drawing comics. So Jim went to business school. He went to art school.
Okay.
But his dad wanted him to be a businessman.
Do you understand the behind scenes?
Right.
Yeah.
I think he wanted to be an engineer or something like that. But so Jim went about it as a business.
Okay.
Where most of the guys, I mean, I've published comic books.
Yeah.
I've been published in Viz and Dark Horse and
Sweet.
a few things, but Jim went at it as I'm going to be the first guy, and he did. And every move he has made has been, calculated to get to where he's at.
Yeah.
And but he planned on it. The guys he studied, and if you look at his art, were like Art Adams, who was the hot guy back then.
Correct.
And he went, okay, I see what Art's doing, so I'm going to do that, and I see what Silvestri's doing, so I'm going to put that in there too. But I'm going to put a touch of Mike Kaluta over here into it too. You know what I mean? And that's what he did.
Drew inspiration.
He studied the best guys and went, okay, I see why they're the best. Now I'm going to put that in my art. It's not that he automatically could do it.
Yeah.
He calculated his art. And when he got together with Scott Williams as inker, that's why Scott Williams inks everything he does. And Scott has made a buttload of money.
Very comfortable living doing so.
Extremely. I actually helped him buy a Frank Frazetta piece once.
I like how you mentioned that because it reminds me of the scene in Mallrats, which I just found my old VHS copy of, when they're having that fight when he's like, you're just an inker, like, get out of here and all. I was like, no, these guys could actually make a really good living if they're following a really good artist and they complement each other really well.
And that's why the two of them have worked together for so long.
Yeah.
Because Jim's like, he makes my art good, so we're going to stay a team, and he gets paid very well to do it.
Oh, I can only imagine. Yeah, I've seen Jim do his art stuff on his Instagram lives, and there's times where I literally want to cry just because of how clean and how fast he can draw.
Yeah, Julie actually has a video of, we were in Lake Como, Italy.
Okay.
And Jim was our guest there, and he decided to do one of his live things. So I got him this paper, and he puts it up on the wall, and it's a brick wall. And he draws this Wolverine as just so he can makes a lot of money doing all these little TikToks and all.
Yeah.
So that's just it. He's very calculated.
Oh, he knows.
And he knows he draws something every other day for these guys, and everybody pays a subscription to watch him. That's why.
Okay.
He makes a lot of money. So he's in Italy, and he's got a small crowd of people around him, and he starts doing it, and he starts inking, and she's got it because he looks kind of right at her. He's like, oh, fuck. And he pulls it out. He didn't realize that it was going to bleed through.
Oh.
The ink had gotten on that wall. Because that was a brick wall.
Yeah.
You can't paint over it. No. And then he grabs another piece of paper, puts it underneath, and then Finn finishes his thing, but he stopped his thing real quick and fixed it real quick.
I would have been like, let it go right there. Just have him sign next to it. Like, there's this brick wall in Italy that has the Jim Lee original
I don't
on
think they would have liked it too much because this was in Lake Como, Italy.
It still would have been awesome. Like, there's a little piece of comic book history exactly for us comic nerds. I mean, like, I'm specifically going to that one brick wall to see this Jim Lee original. Oh, man. There's going to be great stories, too.
Yeah.
So I definitely appreciate your time. I have one final question for you. Up to this point, favorite comic artist and favorite comic character?
Favorite comic artist. Now, I mean, I love Frazetta. I love Al Williamson. I've actually met all those guys too. But for doing comic books,
correct.
John Buscema.
Wow.
Hands down.
That's
see, I even used him on the flyer.
Yeah, it's right there. You guys can actually see the information here. This is what Steve is masterminding behind the Bakersfield Comic Con, which I am hoping to attend given my time off from work. I will go check that out because, I mean, there's nothing but a labor of love put in behind this. It's really beautiful.
But yeah, I used John Buscema's art because John is, to me, the best comic book artist. And I was fortunate. Right before he passed away, I talked to him on the phone many times. And I met him once at a signing. And then he wouldn't come to California.
Okay.
And straight out, I'm on the phone with him. And he's like, nope, can't do it because the day we land, the big earthquake's going to hit. Oh. That's what he was afraid. And I'm like, but you live in New York, you're going to get robbed and beaten. Don't worry about earthquakes. They don't happen. I grew up in the Bay Area, I know. But anyway, so he wouldn't come. But we finally convinced him to come because he did that art of John Buscema, and David Spurlock. It's like, John, you have to come. So I sponsored him.
Wow.
And we had this dinner called the AACC dinner, which was only guests and artists.
Nice.
And, and old collectors. And I sponsored him, so he's sitting right here next to me through the whole dinner. That's why I did it. And so I got to meet him.
And just sit there, like, pick his brain. That's
just
so
talk,
cool.
And, because I always wanted to be a comic book king.
Okay.
That's all I never wanted to put on shows. I don't wanted to sell vintage comics. I just wanted to be in comic books. Okay. And he's like, well, what did you always want to do? I said, I always wanted to ink your Thor.
Ooh.
And he's like, never going to happen. Because he was done. But the next day, he walks up to my table, very straight-faced. He's got this 11x17 drawing. He's like, here, you can ink my Thor, and walks away.
Way.
Gives me a pencil drawing. I've never inked it. I've whiteboarded it, but I've never inked it. And I was telling his brother, Sal Buscema, about it. Ooh. And Sal's like, yeah, that sounds like my brother.
Man.
No, didn't wait for a thank you, just plopped it and walked away. But John Buscema is my favorite. And my favorite character, I mean, there's a handful, because I'm old school.
Okay.
But I like Silver Surfer, Conan. But my favorite character is probably the Vision.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Vision's a good one.
For comic book characters. And the funny thing, now think about that. John Buscema drew Conan. John Buscema drew Silver Surfer. John Buscema created the Vision, with Roy Thomas.
You've been happy with his artwork all the way through.
And I own one of the three. He only recreated that cover 3 times before he passed away, and I own one of them. I own the color one. The one he did in color. But my other favorite character, fictional character, and he has been in comics, is Elric. Elric of Melniboné. Michael Moorcock wrote the books. And when I was a little kid, I was reading Conan.
Oh, Conan's great.
In Conan 14 and 15, Elric appears.
Okay.
And it's Michael Moorcock's character, but Barry Smith was drawing it. Okay. And I was like, the art's beautiful. It's Barry Smith.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who's Elric? So I picked up the book and went, wow. And that's turned me onto that. And many years later, many years, actually, I think 4 years ago, I finally got Michael Moorcock to a show. So as a guest, and me and him and my wife and his wife, the 4 of us went to Original Joe's in San Jose.
Nice.
And had dinner, sat there for 3 hours. And we didn't talk about how'd you write this. We talked about our our stupid dads. I would say other things, but I'm trying to keep it clean. Our weird kids, our crazy cats. You know, we talked about life for 3 hours, and it was just amazing.
That is, again, my brain is so overloaded with like sensory. I mean, the fact you've got to sit down.
We could sit and talk for 5 hours, and I can tell you stories.
Yeah, you've sat down, talked to me graciously for this couple minutes. I'm blown away. Honestly, I'm at a loss for words, and the people who know me, that's very difficult to do because I can talk for hours and hours.
I can even tell you Jack Kirby stories.
Oh no, don't get me started on Jack Kirby.
So.
I'll have a heart attack right here in the seat. But Steve, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you sitting down, talking to me, and talking to your fans for Corpses for Conversation. You guys make sure you check out the Bakersfield Comic Con and the other cons you got going. You got Bach Anime?
Bach Anime. Well, it's Bake Anime in Bakersfield, but the people call it Bach.
Okay.
So I just...
it resonates in my head because Baki the Grappler is one of my favorite anime series I like.
Yeah, and that's where it came from. But originally it's Bake as in Bakersfield.
Okay, so Bake Anime and then also MouseCon. So he covers... Technically, like by land, by air, by sea, he covers the comic book side of things, the anime side of things, and the Disney side of things. So do yourself a favor, check the stuff out. I will provide links and all that on our Corpses for Conversation Instagram and on the YouTube page. You guys don't want to miss this. Go check it out. I will be there. Hopefully other members of the Corpses for Conversation team will be there as well. But Steve, thank you very much for your time. I look forward to seeing you. All right?
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.